I will now bring to order the meeting of the Pajaro Valley Healthcare District Hospital Corporation Strategic Planning and Marketing Committee. I think, Rosie, we have to have a roll call.
Yes. Director Gallagher?
Here.
Stephen Gray?
Here.
Julie Peterson? Here. Matt Cobranches?
Here.
Nancy Gear? And Chair Nunez?
Here. Okay, any agenda modifications for consideration for today's meeting? Okay, seeing none, I will open up the public comment for matters not on the agenda. Online?
Online.
None in person either. I'll close the public comment. Any comments from the committee members, just in general? We get started on the normal agenda. All right, I'll close it down and we'll go into the consent items. And we have a recommendation to pass a motion approving the minutes of our first our first meeting on July. Any questions before I open up for public comment on this?
The only question I have is, I had printed this package a while back, and I don't know if there was an updated one, but somehow on the consent item, it's talking about the finance committee. So do you guys have an updated one that actually talks about the last meeting we had? I printed this a while back, as I did.
Must have been fixed. For the minutes, is that what you meant?
Yeah, did you get updated minutes in there?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Okay, no, it might have been, I printed stuff and did catch it, so I just wanted to make sure.
Julie, do you want to take a moment to review the minutes at all, or are you confident?
I'm confident. We review minutes around here so often. I'm pretty confident. So I'll let somebody else make them.
Okay. Public comment, seeing no hands raised and no hands raised here, I'll close the public comment, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for our first meeting on July. So moved. Second.
Thank you. Gallagher and Gray. For roll, Director Gallagher?
Yes.
Stephen Gray?
Yes.
Julie Peterson?
Yes.
Matt Cobranches? Nancy Gear? And Chair Nunez?
Yes. Passes unanimously, and we'll move into the discussion items. Item number 2 is the Strategic Planning and Marketing Committee description. Steve?
Yeah, so page 6 of our packets has the original description of the committee, which we worked on quite a bit in our last meeting, and I think we got pretty close to it. And then below that spans pages 6 and 7 of the packet is the updated version. I have a recommendation or two to make modifications to this on the first part of it that speaks to the membership. But I think this is something that we want to do to try to finalize this so that we can bring final recommended language description of the committee bylaws to the full board on the 28th.
Thank you. Has everyone had the opportunity to review the description that is proposed on page 6? Have it here in front of me, or happy to read both the original and then also.
So one thing, I don't know if we want to talk
please.
about
Yeah.
ideas, but Dr. Gallagher had mentioned, I don't remember if it was in the meeting or over email, but that the doctors and the staff kind of felt like an afterthought. And so I had a thought around that, which was, you don't necessarily need to say how many senior executives, directors, managers need to be on. What if we just said 2 board members, maximum of 11 persons, including the 2 board members, plus up to 9 of the following. Just listed everybody: senior executives, directors, managers, providers, staff. Then they're all kind of in the list together. 2 board members we have to have. Everybody else is like, figure that out. We just have to have a mix of. And I worry about putting numbers next to each one, because then you kind of get beholden to that. And if you're not, meeting that, and we want to have those people, right? That was my thought. Where's that going in?
Well, it's sort of going the opposite
Direction of what you're thinking.
but I understand the rationale for it. I think the tide is going away from employees, and I don't think we've ever had community members other than, so I'd sort of like to see us make sure that works, and however we do that is fine with me. If this makes the board process simpler, or the committee process simpler, okay. One of my thoughts about our last discussion was, most of you, I think, are on salary, and much of what you do is for meetings. It's not the case for employees who are paid by the hour and
Right.
would have to come in on a day off, so it's a whole other juggle. So try to figure out how to accommodate getting both community and online employee representation, input really.
Yeah.
What I'm really interested
Yeah.
in, things that we do, whether it's in this or whether it's going forward, it's separate from this. I like the idea of flexibility, so checking out that language, Steve, I think that you just said right now, of like setting in stone what we have right now, but then also saying, and no more than X amount of, the following employees, or whatever it might be, the following folks, and having, includes, community members, frontline staff, positions, and so on. I think, Joe, to that point, for the committee, I mean, in terms of accessibility, maybe it's moving the time of this committee meetings, so that even if they're not a part of committee and part of a voting committee, that they can make it to one of them and be part of the public, right? So Sure.
at a time that works for this group, right, that we can.
I think that's the key thing.
Yeah. Maybe it's that, Steve, just thinking about like what times work for your staff and they, I'd like the most participation.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just sort of making me think of putting more information out there to the staff about, like, when we get the bylaws updated, put more out to the staff about, like, here are the committees we have, and here are the places where we need committee members from the staff. We want to hear from you. Engaging interest on the committees that we have, getting feedback from them on times of days that would work, right? When would you actually be able to come if you're interested, and when would you not be able to come? And it is really hard for people who are like clinical, right? They're not going to meetings. They're taking care of people, and just when they're not taking care of people, they're going and taking care of their families, right? Right. So, yeah. So I want to be as accommodating as possible, knowing challenging that. So maybe there's some work that happens after the August board meeting. Start to gauge that. Try to drum up that, because I just had that conversation with Margaret this morning about the employee engagement committee and reinvigorating that. Had some people who were part of it and maybe came once or twice, but then it was challenging to get them to keep coming. So she's gonna reach out to those people who had been on it before and see if they're still interested in what might work for them. Reinvigorate that. So.
Could we engage this group that we're talking about in agenda development, so they can at least put out some ideas and put it out there for discussion in some way? Then they would feel involved, and they could highlight items that they feel strongly should be on the agenda, should be looked at. That might be one way of doing it without having.
Or just shift the time that we meet different times of day.
I can't do them every night. I'll give up my space.
There you go.
As soon as you went 5, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's sure. I think, with this committee in particular, because of, I think we're at, like, whenever we need to meet, right, is included in our bylaws.
That's right,
At this moment.
this is shall meet as.
Yeah, as needed. This one is gonna be really tough for folks, because they can't even, like, plan out ahead or whatever it is, and, like, not even
Right.
considering, like, vacation and those sorts of things. But, I mean, to plan out as far as possible, I think that was one of the reasons. I think the last meeting that we had was, at least pick some dates, and find out when we're gonna meet, or like some date ranges, when this committee's gonna get together, so that when we bring people on, especially when we go out to members of the public, say, this is the number of meetings that you are gonna be, involved in. That's
Yeah.
like, first things that I get
Yeah,
when I was
for
going
sure.
out to people for something like this, are like, well, how many meetings is this?
Yeah, how long are the meetings?
Yeah, how long are the meetings? And, they're interested, but, those are for some people, make or break stuff, so. But, bringing it back to this, I'm perfectly fine, Steve, if you wanna draft that language that you said, so we can make sure that we can continue to meet and have productive meetings, for this committee. I'm fine with that, and, if you wanna make a motion with that, if there's no other discussion about the updates.
Did you suggest a change, or did you
I
just recap on it? Okay, so you listed out the names of certain levels of staff, correct? Which,
You want me to show you my chicken?
yes, please.
So it's crossing out the 4,
Okay.
the latest one,
Floor manager,
and then instead of the 4, it says plus up to 9 of the following.
okay, gotcha.
And then you take out the or before managers and the along with before providers.
Okay, that's it. All right, thank you.
Ease of thing, rather than providers with medical staff privileges, I might just say medical staff members. What thoughts?
Medical staff members.
Yeah, that's good.
Members. Okay, thank you.
Can you read that out loud? Whenever you get-
Yes, the strategic planning and marketing committee shall meet as needed and consist of a minimum of 2 board members with a maximum of 11 persons, including 2 board members, or, plus up to 9 of the following: senior executives, hospital directors, managers, then it would be, or medical staff members at Watsonville Community Hospital.
Staff should sit in there.
Yeah, or front.
Shouldn't have an or before medical staff, because that should have been crossed off. Okay, medical staff members, comma, or staff, or frontline staff, whatever it says,
Or,
Hospital frontline staff.
or hospital frontline staff.
I think the or in the end. Where it's missing.
and hospital frontline staff.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read it one more time. The strategic planning and marketing committee shall meet as needed and consist of a minimum of 2 board members with a maximum of 11 persons, including 2 board members plus up to 9 of the following: senior executives, hospital directors, managers, medical staff members, and hospital frontline staff at Watsonville Community.
Oh, yeah, there should be. Sorry.
No, you're good. Frontline staff at Watsonville Community. Where should I put community members in this thing? So maybe
I would
I'll put at the end.
Yeah, at the end.
Make it.
And community members.
Do we have other committees where we have people who don't work here or do part of them?
I don't know.
You're elected board member.
I don't know. So, no, right? No, this is the only one.
We do count the board members as community members.
Yeah, so why is this one different?
Well, I'd like this one to, I feel like there's people in the community who have skills that I think that would be good for some, especially in like strategic planning work. The other ones, like employee engagement, makes sense to keep house. The other ones as well too, they're more like based on clinical and financial. I think the finance committee actually, I might see one, when we get to a point where we can be more forward future looking on those, have some really good data to look at. Might be interested in bringing people from outside in to add perspective. But this is one where I think have the opportunity to bring some people. Looks like as a buy-in, if from either like partnering providers or organizations, or even just from businesses, to learn to their staffers and kind of people who can really give us a good perspective.
I would ditto in another way, maybe just add the idea that it's part of the community for all these other.
Segues nicely into. So do we need to move and approve that new language?
Yeah, I'm gonna open and close the public comment real quick. Hands raised. This person, I'll close the public comment, and then I'll entertain a motion. So moved. All set? Okay.
Alright, thank you.
Yeah.
Alright, Director Gallagher,
Yes.
Julie Peterson, Nancy Gear, Matt Ranges,
Yes.
Steve Gray,
Yes.
and Chair Nunez.
Yes. All right, item number 3, Community Health Advocacy's recommendation on, 2 items. One is to discuss and determine a plan to establish criteria for valuing new services. Ability and value, and 2 is to provide input on when the high priority strategy should be. And contact here, but it's up on this.
Well, I think, number 1 comes from the last page of the packet, which was the notes from our retreat. And number 2, I was hoping Nancy could do. Yeah, so, we can, yeah, if you wanna give us your, sort of your thoughts, and I think you had a thought on the next time you meet.
I mean, the
what you
first,
might
number
recommend.
1 is really different from,
Yeah.
and that's bigger picture. Stuff like that, but it's like a whole discussion in how does this evaluate the service?
Yeah, no, these are both big discussions.
And then, so do you want me to jump into number 2, or?
What would you like to do?
Sure, okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So, I think what would be most useful for this committee after our first meeting is for, me to come back and really, give you a window into my world, the last, and really what we've done in terms of marketing since transition profit. And that way, this committee should be better equipped to actually give input into what the priorities should be, the highest priority strategy moving forward. It's first to understand what the current strategies are and what's happened in the first 2 years, and then maybe we look at the next 2 years. So, I just put together, and so I'd like to come back and do a more formal presentation for this committee and for the public record of, what have been the strategies since public, nonprofit hospital again. And then, you know, we can really look to the future more effectively rather than just starting to bring some random here in this group. So I put together just some notes just to give you a little bit of a sneak peek, if you will, into what that presentation will be, or just kind of, but the biggest overall strategies, I mean, really we came into it with as a blank canvas, really an exciting opportunity, you know, and we came in as a district. Okay, and when I walked in the door, it was really, you know, the marketing had been done by the previous for-profit owners more from a corporate marketing level, and we were just one of many hospitals around the country. So the marketing was very, it really was a blank canvas walking in. So the big strategies really were to reestablish Watsonville Community Hospital as a nonprofit hospital again, and to, you know, now as a newly created healthcare district, and what does that mean to the community? Re-engaging really with the huge overall strategy. Building partnerships with community-based organizations, again, public health, of course, elected officials, and sort of prioritizing, because you can't do it all in one, you know, month one of becoming a district hospital. So sort of prioritizing and doing that, building of partnerships. Reconnecting with the press, another big strategy in the first 2 years, really, because this door, from my understanding anyway, was fairly close to the press under the for-profit owners. And so reconnecting and re-engaging with the press, I have to say, I mean, my first year here, I've literally never done more PR in any job I've held in my entire career as I did the first year. It was just crazy how, you know, they just were hungry for information. What's happening in the hospital? So that was a huge undertaking and strategy, really, to re-engage, to help them begin to tell our story, right, at no cost. Also, the strategies here are all done with a really, you know, minimal resource, obviously. So there was some of that went into the what are we going to do question. So, but effective to really reconnect and get that story told again. And then really working on foundational marketing, which is brand, you know, raising brand awareness, and the rebrand that we're currently working on with the new logo, and that's just very foundational. Also, again, just, you know, basic website. You know, this is how people understand about you. It's online is where it's at now. And when I walked in, and still is, the website is product of the old owner, 2 owners ago, actually. And so just really refreshing the website and working toward redesign and really overhaul. And so that's where we're at right now, is that they've all been refreshed. Rosie and I are working on the district site now. We have a new vendor we hired, and we're on a total redesign of that. And not only from the marketing standpoint, but from a standpoint of meeting all of our
not disability, our
thank you, compliance. From a compliance standpoint, we learned there's a huge amount of compliance issues that a district hospital needs to meet that we weren't meeting, and so just all of that fell under the marketing umbrella as well. So we're working toward that accessibility, for example, ADA compliance, all those things that have to happen on the website. So all of that is a big strategy. Again, that's part of the really foundational marketing that is happening in the first 2 years. Let's see. So, and then really, I think my biggest thing when I walked in the door was we need to focus on rebuilding our reputation. Suffered a lot under previous owners, under the transition. Oh my gosh, the bankruptcy, what's going on there? You know, I don't want to know if I want to go there so the reputation. So that's huge in terms of, for me, it'll be an ongoing strategy moving forward as well, is rebuilding that reputation. So those are sort of the overarching strategies for the first 2 years, and I have like 3 pages of my notes as I'll build this presentation of the tactics to implement those strategies. But, you know, it's been, of the internal community. That's
Right.
just external marketing. Internal strategies are, we're really rebuilding trust with employees, because of all the changes, all the many CEOs we've had, and all the different, structures we've had. And so rebuilding trust and reassuring staff of our long-term sustainability as a nonprofit, right? So that we are gonna still be here, we're not gonna be belly up. You know, there was, I mean, you guys lived through all the transition, and I'm sure there were times where people thought, oh my gosh, I'll have a job tomorrow. So, just the internal communication strategies there, and then creating programs to reconnect with employees, recognize their contributions, and then forums, give them platforms in which they can, provide input and feedback. So, you know, there's a lot going on there. Obviously, our Compass, our internal website, the Blue Star Award for recognition, lots of, you have a wisdom well on the Compass, which is employee feedback suggestion box that is managed. So a lot of internal communication strategies as well as we came into this thing. So that's just a little taste of what the presentation will be. Those are the big picture strategies as I was just, you know, putting some notes together. But I think that it will be helpful for you all to know those are the strategies, what are the tactics that have been implemented, what's continuing on, and what I can tell you I see as the strategies moving into year 3 and 4, will be, and then you all as a group, we can, you know, this group, I'm looking forward to, you know, hearing your thoughts and checking my thoughts and doing some brainstorming on what you see as the appropriate strategy as we move forward into sort of the next stage of, we're not just a brand new thing anymore. So if that works for group, I mean, I think it would, you know, I'll prepare that, and then we go to a meeting, and then we really have a more, I think, effective discussion when you're equipped with all the right information.
Yes, definitely.
So,
Any questions? No?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strategy, tactics, and measurables, right? And how do you measure what strategies? So, yeah, I'm excited about that.
me too. The only other thing I will say, and it's not specifically on this agenda, but it is in the thing we just reviewed, is the, definition of this group. There's a component in there about overseeing the community benefit plan as well. So, it's somewhat, we don't, it's not on today's agenda, but we can talk about that maybe. But that's also happening, and, you know, we'll do that research every 3 years. I'm also on a team, regionally to look at, you know, how our resources all of that. So, anyway, I'm happy to bring all that stuff to this group as well down the road when we, but I think it would be important to tackle this, first, because as I work on the strategic marketing plan, it will be good to get input prior to that being set. So,
I guess my comment is, like, you've done an incredible amount of work in a year or less, you know, and it's like, it's been a ton of basically standing stuff up from nothing. So we've started to build a lot of the, what can we now use, tools do we now have? And so I see, you know, part of this next phase, which will dovetail in with number 1 and dovetail in what we think we're working on, but it's just like, I think of, like, you know, the roadmap from a timing perspective, because you can't do everything at once, and we have so many lofty goals, and at some point we've got to kind of say, you know, like we know right now with the bond, everything's going to go into purchasing this building, and then right away we know we want to get started on a project with it. So, you know, as we're starting to figure out how to, you know, kind of assimilate all the unity input and various inputs, we have to have some way of managing back to reality in terms of timing. Yeah, and so we can manage expectations. And so I think somewhere down the road we'll start to probably just try to obviously resources is a huge
Yes,
thing,
resources is.
both from the budget standpoint and but also the time standpoint.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to say, currently, I can't have more staff, so what do we do? Can we do? And it's prioritizing, so I think if this group, you know, priorities, that's helpful.
Do we want to move backwards? to
Yeah,
how
so
do
a lot more of that for next time, and then for this time, spending a little bit of time thinking about what we talked about at the board retreat, which was how do we identify criteria for evaluating, I guess, new and existing services, right? This, not just the new ones, although that's what we talked about, but it should be existing, you know, to what extent do we have the right services for our community to provide the right level of care that they need and deserve. We should always be looking at the current services in addition to what, you know, new or future services there might be. And I think if we establish some good criteria for how we will evaluate these kinds of things, that will help with the strategic partnership conversations over the next few months. Amen.
So what is the process that we have set up right now? Something like this,
Well, we haven't had the luxury of thinking about new services in a while, right? So this is planning ahead for when we do have that opportunity to say, oh, we've got this new service, or we've got this potential or possibility for a new service or a partnership that could bring a new service in. And better to think about the criteria sort of in an abstract, high-level way right now, probably from the standpoint of our strategic priorities is probably where I would point us to first, right? Financial sustainability and clinical services and access and patient experience and quality and all of those things is probably a good way to start. Rather than, you know, new service opportunity lands in your lap and we're like, oh, good, how do we evaluate this, right? We should have it in, have that plan in place ahead of time and give us some guidance on that.
You know, one of the things that I remember, when you kind of got started with this whole sort of process, is you would always kind of define the critical success factors. And I can almost see for the various strategies that we have and the various kind of pillars that we have is like, what do we see as the critical success factors? Because then when you're looking at a new opportunity or an existing one, you're kind of throwing it up against that wall and saying, does it meet one of these critical success factors, or does it meet one of the things that why we do what we do? And if it doesn't, you put it in one pile, and if it does, then you put it in each pile, and then has to be prioritized. So it's defining those critical. Yeah, probably, you know, what are the critical success factors, and you know, we have things in the, some of the tactics and stuff, which I think is you just kind of look about, you know, you probably start to think about the critical success factors. Like I don't remember, because I'm sure there was some specific definition so that you kind of kept things actionable or grounded, you know. Critical success factors were really critical, and again, you know, didn't have 100 of them, 3 of them per item or something.
I'd like to add needs to system criteria.
I think that is a critical success factor.
Yeah, great.
Right? I mean,
Sure.
to me, like, you know, there's revenue and generation is one, and then community needs, those are, and hopefully we find the right thing. Obviously, we're looking to find, but.
Yeah.
Success factors, both, right? Well, I mean, you might not have, there may not be something like critical success factor, or it only meets the criteria if it meets these 3 things, because it may be, there's gonna Yeah, well, you know, I mean, a lot of them are, you know, the major,
But we're gonna, I think community needs offer anything.
I've been in discussions where people talk about esoteric,
Oh.
boutique things.
There are, yeah,
Oh,
there are a lot of healthcare
okay.
services that are
That's right.
that are probably not high on the needs priority list, yeah.
Okay. I can't even imagine us being there, so I guess.
I mean, if you think about it, the reason they're community needs is because they're not revenue generators.
Right. Other
So
providers.
if they were, you'd have a lot of people willing to do them.
They all work in church.
So community need and access and financial sustainability sound like they rise to the top as the two primary gates.
And I mean, I think there's, you know, kind of the ability to recruit the staffing and the providers that you need. Because that's a challenge in our area. So. Have a lot of needs, but it's so hard to get.
The word resources. Physical resources.
I think, I mean, just in any decision making that you're doing, it's always also, you know, where else is this need being filled already in the community, you know? We've seen a couple of strategy type topics lately that, you know, have the opportunity to partner with somebody else, so that we're all not just doing this tiny piece of it. And one place could do it better if they got all of it. Obviously, and I mean, certainly the financial one has kind of a lot of tentacles, because it's, you know, can you staff it, can you afford to pay for supplies, do you need new equipment, do you space build out, you know, a lot of different, basically, a pro forma.
And I don't know where the trend in healthcare would fall in this. I don't know if that's like part of feasibility or part of the financial of that. Yeah, think about like the surgery centers that have popped up, especially here in Washington. Like weighing and being updated with trends happening, level legislation, all that stuff on like impact us.
Any funding sources?
Yeah, well, funding sources, but then also, if there's anything like, like a good example would be like the earthquake retrofitting that has it all healthcare provider or hospitals have to undergo. How's that gonna impact the industry? Is that gonna open up for us? Is that gonna make it more challenging for other healthcare providers? So like, analyzing those sorts of trends, especially thinking about things strategically and finding out how, when would make a good opportunity for us to add a service, I think is essential, and I don't know if that's its own thing, but underneath another criteria. I might be looking too far out.
Well, that's what strategy is about, right? No, I think it's important because, you think about, like you mentioned, the ambulatory surgery centers. The reason those are popping up is because there are trends towards not paying for stuff in the hospital and insurers pushing people to go to surgery centers instead, and so more surgery centers pop up and looking at what the future of that looks like. Is it gonna continue in that direction? Is it gonna come back, or do really good example of making sure that the trends, and that wouldn't necessarily pop up on its own in any of those other criteria. Right. Community need, financial sustainability, you'd just be looking at kind of the now, right? Community needs should look at trends too, right? Diabetes is a little bit of an equity problem here, and it's, looking out 5-10 years, it's going to be even worse if we don't do something about it. So let's do something about it now. So calling out future trends as another pillar underneath these factors.
Because I guess like all other healthcare providers that also community trying to your baby is being born, I'm just like, for various reasons, but obviously some like ability of services here at Buffalo Community Hospital is concerning, and seeing like where that is going ultimately, how it's going to impact that means. So yeah, building out services that way, understanding like this is going to happen, this is where we're going to be in 5 years, so what can we do?
This raises, is something that I think we kind of struggle with almost every day. And I don't know exactly how to feed it in sometimes, but it's always the balance of like, there's kind of like a new thing out there that we want to do, and we're financially constrained. And not even just financially constrained with our, kind of existing book of business and AP, but it's like our lack of tools and things we need to be more nimble and to be able to do things. So that's almost like a third bucket. So there's like existing, there's just kind of supporting tools that are not going to excite anybody. It's not the, well, it might excite a department, but it's not the new shiny object for any patient or C-suite executive. But, buy me a budget system, I'll be happy. And then there's, the new services, but they all kind of vie for the same resources, both financially and time-wise. And so, how are we going to make those kind of decisions? Because if we say, well, we want all this intel into the future, great, but we don't really have a way to do it right now. Those decisions.
I was thinking, I'm not sure whether it fits, but as far as us, if we were considering something, we love to deliver it in a high quality standard. Talk about where we are grades with or whomever, have we considered something? Do we have the right medical staff, and do we have the right facilities, have the right system in place, and all of those things for us to be able to deliver at a high quality level? Otherwise, we probably shouldn't go into that. You know what I mean? If we really want to. That is like an important part of the clinical quality test. It's related to what you just said. How we make that investment to be able to deliver the high quality that we want.
I think that somewhat goes to the timeline roadmap question, because when I think of like Phyllis has come in and, she's basically introduced a strategy of back to basics, back to core nursing standards. So, that's wonderful because it's directly heading there, but it also says time out. We've got to step back and repurpose some things.
Back to Steve's knowledge about the house and the foundation. You can't build a great house without a decent foundation, and if we're not there, budgeting systems, analytics tools, they're not shiny and things that you're going to advertise in the community about, but those are all elements that are necessary to develop quality programs and make the right decisions going forward. So, but financial resources being what they are, hard to say we're going to dedicate everything to get this, is because then we won't make progress on the other side. moving things along gradually, not too fast. Getting where you want to be.
Yeah, it's almost like rather than, it almost feels to me like establishing criteria for evaluating service. Like, maybe it's a strategy thinking that piece, like how do you reconfigure this thing, but doing this, if you're doing writing, rather than looking at almost like this, maybe the committee's role is that first, and then down the road it might be this, but, and it could say it gets in the
Organizations that don't grow tend to die. Well, so you have to balance growth.
right.
And over the years, and Dr. Gallagher can attest to this as well, we cut back services trying to cut our way to success, and in my experience, it's not been successful. We're just constantly contracting, trying to be successful, and I don't think we'll ultimately be successful that way. At least it's been demonstrated as what not to do over the last 20 years, both for our community and the organization. So balancing that sustainable growth in the right direction, but making sure everything's in place to do it appropriately, high level of quality, essential. But I think that comes back to how do we do that, and how do we allocate the resources to do that effectively.
I think it kind of, almost raises the, and this will be harder for you to resonate because you got 30 years here, but for a lot of us, it's like, how well do we know ourselves? And collecting all this data for the RFP has been like, wow, I didn't know that, or wow. And do we have other data? And, if you think about, like, if you were trying to do, like, a profile of every department here in terms of, its spending, its quality, its size, its what it provides, what kind of patient satisfaction it gives, we just don't have that at our fingertips. We're kind of trying, there's a few of us that get into press painting and know how to use the system, but we don't really broadcast that kind of stuff yet. We hear about a leapfrog or something. It depends on which meetings you go to, because I don't go to a lot of meetings that some of this stuff will be talked at. So it's like, how well do we know ourselves to know what should be evaluated for change or elimination or growth? We kind of, a lot of it, I think, is we know what produces revenue, or we know maybe what the community needs that we don't provide, or we only provide a little of, but how do we really kind of look inside before we start buying new clothes?
And even being here 30 years, things that we think we know, is it really valid? Is it really accurate? Lack of tools. We think these things are happening this way. We think this is profitable or feasible, but is it really? And we may find that things that we think are a certain way, maybe not turn out that way. So, yeah, being here 30 years just raises more questions, actually.
The conversation back about measurables, right? About like, what do we find is a good way to measure ourselves, or measuring ourselves? Simply saying like, okay, well, we're making progress from where we were, and that's good, or do we have like a set thing? I think the dashboard is an awesome top-down 30,000-foot view, but then really fun, like to be able to go into a service and say, yeah, actually, this is pretty good size, and this is where we want to be with this service. We don't want to grow it, and we want to actually just make the actual quality of the service better. And we're going to add more surgeries to this, or add more this, or whatever it might be. But I don't think, to Julie's point, like data is always, I know you're obviously, you're incredible looking at data and being able to predict out, like that. But being able to determine like what that data is and what those things are.
Yeah.
Those leverage points where we can say, okay, this service is ready for an expansion, or this is working, how can we partner with someone else for them to help us out with determining those things that they work for us in this process.
That's the whole thing about, like, if we do find a strategic partner who brings us Epic, he brings us new financial tools, or new tools to support some other service, it's like, it's gonna be like buying a brand new house.
Yeah.
It's like, they want used before because it didn't really work, and now I got 4 bathrooms. I mean, it's just, because it's incredible how much we struggle to get data out of MedHost, how much we struggle working with MedHost, because they don't even know how to get data out of their own system, or they just don't have the resources themselves. So, that will change our whole view, but it will take a substantial amount of time to get from here to there.
So we're at 3:56.
Yeah.
We want to kind of recap what, I think you called it chicken scratch earlier, but here it goes.
Yeah, I've captured 5 critical success factors, so tell me if I missed any or I misstate any. Community need and access with kind of a balancing metric of, is there existing access elsewhere? That would be 1. Financial sustainability would be 2. Talent and resources, so whether that's physical resources or people resources, providers or staff. Trends, related trends. And then foundational systems that are in place to ensure high quality and patient experience. Did I miss any?
No,
Or would you improve upon any of those the way I said them?
So the ultimate goal is to expand out from these 5, or develop these 5 into, how do we weigh them, or are these just like the things that we are constantly thinking about whenever something is brought to this?
Yeah, I don't know, what have you seen before? Have you seen do we want to do this numerically, like you and I think in spreadsheets? So like, is that the way we would do this, or is this like a?
Well, I think, if we say those are like our must-haves,
Sure.
then we probably find some way that if something comes across our thing, it's like, is it like a high linkage, a medium linkage, a low linkage to these, kind of similar to our link metrics thing, or, whether it's numerical or HML sort of thing. But then we probably also define it like, well, how many low linkages do you have before you're out? Or maybe you're never out because there's just, it's a must do, But I think, I don't know.
Services and pricing.
Methodology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's for both existing.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, to Julie's point earlier, a lot of our services are not gonna meet the financial sustainability
Right.
criteria.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's gotta be a big, how do we know? Because we don't really have
Yeah.
good service lines, we don't have any service line
I
tools,
don't know that
Right.
so. It's a kind of,
well, we know that OB is an example, we
Yeah,
know that,
right,
but,
yeah, but OB doesn't match anywhere, which is why some people, they're OB.
right. We're gonna have things like that that are not gonna meet it's not a lot of the criteria.
So there's meeting it, and then there's more like a linkage to,
Like the high, medium, low.
what our mission and vision
Right.
is for the
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good to know, and then decide what you do.
Right.
yeah. But, because then you'll know, it's like, well, we can't have too many of these ones that are dragging us down in,
Right.
in one of the dimensions. But,
Which gets us back to the conversation, like, what are the vital few things we want to be known for? The vital few things that we want to be great at instead of okay at 100 things.
I think doing this is also great for our foundation as well too.
Yeah.
Something meeting community need, trends, all that sort of stuff, but falling really low on sustainability, on resources, that sort of stuff. And for us to very easily go to June and her team and say, this is kind of where we need the most help, and that she knows with everything that we put together for these, the long-term strategy of like, we need assistance. Resource for her. Like, I think that's, I'm sure she'll be happy to see.
I think they did a needs assessment within the
Yeah.
community, but not necessarily, or identifying opportunities.
All right, 4:01. Are we good with coming to a stopping point? We don't have to pass a motion or anything like that. I do need to open it up to public comment, but I'll do, probably adjourn after, if there's nothing else.
I think we've got some good agenda items for next week.
Okay.
Would you wanna do that? Do we wanna get together in a month again?
Yeah. Yes.
Want to adjourn and then look at schedule?
After the,
Yeah,
after we sign the bond stuff.
so I'm gonna open the public comment, close the public comment, and, I will adjourn us. 4:02.